Hey there, I am back with another deck preview, and today we're going to be looking at the Reminisce from Ark Playing Cards. Now, Ark has done some really unique Kickstarter campaigns in the past, but this one is actually part of what they're calling their Light Series playing cards. It's a collection of 3 different really eclectic designs, all completely different from one another, and they're all put together in a single campaign. It's an interesting approach, certainly makes the campaign a little bit more confusing, but if you dive into it, you'll find some decks that all, I think, bring something really unique to the table. So I want to thank Ark for sharing this, the gilded edition of the red version of Reminisce, so that I can share it with you guys. All right, so let's get right into it. Now, Reminisce is one, as the name might suggest, is kind of a tribute or an homage to decks of the past. It kind of combines old and new in what I think is a really cool conceptual deck. Tuck case is done on a really nice ivory pearlescent stock. You can probably see a little bit of the glow there in the corners, but most of the design work comes in the form of these red, black, orange, and blue colors. It's all really lightly embossed and then accented with gold foil throughout. Has this really cool swirling pattern, almost like sheets or ribbons that are kind of folded across one another to form this very kind of circular and very much in motion sort of pattern. You get the name of the deck, the Reminisce playing cards, very simply on the front. It's a fun artistic design, and that embossing and the shine of the pearlescent stock, I think, really kind of adds to the sense of luxury. On the sides, you get Ark Playing Card Company and Reminisce playing cards on the 2 sides. Bottom, this is where the seal is going to be that gives you the ad copy, and is also individually numbered. So there's a standard version that's out of 1,000 and a gilded version out of just 100. Top there, produced by D, just like all of the Ark playing card decks are. And then the back gives you a little preview of the back design of the cards, but of course done up with embossing and gold foiling. As you open it up, you get a little circular emblem there and more of that sort of sweeping design style with the different colored sheets or ribbons going across. Little flourishes on the inner flaps here, and nothing printed on the interior of the tuck box, but this is where you can really get the look at that ivory pearlescent stock. So very nice tuck case. I think does a really good job of capturing a little bit of retro with those off-white color schemes, but a little bit more modern with that brilliant gold foil throughout. As you get to the cards themselves, I think I mentioned this is the gilded version of the decks. You'll see this one's gilded in gold, which I think really kind of captures that retro feel pretty nicely overall. So there's your gold gilding you get on this one. Of course, there's the standard version as well with no gilding. And here's the back design. So very similar to what we were looking at on the tuck case, but instead of gold foil, this one does gold metallic inks. So again, you get those ribbons or sheets that are kind of twisted around, almost forms a kind of circular pattern with the different colored sheets forming all the way around. It's a really kind of beautiful fluid design, and the accents of the gold, I think, just really has a lot of depth. I like the back design. I think it's really well done. And you'll see it finishes out with a micro thin ivory poker border. I am shocked by how thin they were able to get the poker border. Kudos to TWPCC, the Taiwan Playing Card Company, who printed these. That registration has got to be spot on to pull off a border at that level. So there's your back design. Here's the 2 jokers. I got to admit, I'm not quite sure I get what they're going for these jokers. I like them. I don't know exactly how they fit into the theme, but they both feature a playground slide. One of them in kind of a black and white or a grayscale there, and the other one with that red, blue, and gold color scheme, and features a little clown sitting there at the bottom. So there's your 2 jokers, no indices or anything in the corner. So fun look to them. I like them, just don't quite see how they fit the theme. You also get an ad card for Ark Playing Cards, Continuous Exploration and Infinite Innovation, and just has the regular back design on it. And then we get into the cards themselves, and this is where you're going to start to see some of the homage to cards of the past. So each one of the aces, you'll notice right off the bat, doesn't feature an index in the corner. And that's really kind of a tribute to decks from like the 1800s and earlier. Back then, you didn't see the index in the corner. You saw much simpler cards overall. It wasn't until Samuel Hart really started to popularize the idea of putting the index in the corner that you saw much more playable cards where you could just fan them slightly and see the card themselves. But all of the aces here all feature the large pip in the center, especially the ace of spades. Beautiful embellishment with the small black pip in the middle, and then the large kind of outline with another spade pip, all done in those colorful ribbons. A little circle there at the top. Really beautiful design. And then the others feature a much simpler pip in the middle that's just accented with something a little bit extra in there. Like this one, 1870 to 2020. So this is kind of talking about the eras that the deck is meant to kind of combine. So looking at designs of decks prior to 1870, those with no indices and things like that, and then also kind of combining that with the modern of 2020. There's the next one. The ace of clubs has the produced by D, and then the ace of hearts has a little kind of a stamp there with the Reminisce playing cards. So very cool on those. Obviously the no index in the corner hurts the playability, but it's a tribute to history, and honestly that's what it was, right? The index in the corner was all about improving the playability. Number cards as well, you'll see in that no index style. You'll see this with, like I said, older decks, but also with Pharaoh decks that still kind of follow this style. But very cool retro feel to them overall. I love the history that's wrapped up into these, even if you don't get the playability that you would with the index in the corner. So pretty classic layout, very large pips that take up pretty much the entire space of the card because there's nothing else to put on there. But you get black cards for the classic black, and then that kind of crimson red for your hearts and your diamonds. So very simple. Obviously, you'll only use these for certain games, but I think they did really well with them. And then you get into the court cards. And the court cards, once again, are a tribute to the past. Innovators and printers way back when, Samuel Hart, obviously, but also guys like Thomas Krehor and Andrew Doherty, all featured these one-way courts that were inspired by some much earlier French cards. And those are kind of given a facelift on this one. Obviously the style here, you'll see more of that flowing kind of sheets and movement throughout. They're given kind of a more abstract style, but you'll notice each one of the courts is a full body one-way court. And so you'll get to see all the way down to the legs of the jack. You'll see this same style, roughly at least, on older decks of cards, but this one's given a little bit more of an abstract feel. Almost has kind of a Picasso look with those really kind of abstract looking faces at the top. So a little bit of Picasso combined with a little bit of vintage playing card history. I think they did really well. I think the color scheme works great on these. The red, blue, and yellow, or gold in this case, definitely a tribute to cards that we're all used to. But I think these are a lot of fun, kind of a nod to history. Obviously, just like everything else in the deck, not designed to be as playable as cards with the innovations that we know today, but I think they're really kind of a great vintage touch in these. Interestingly, one of the most significant things when playing card manufacturers really started going to the two-way pips, or two-way court cards, it was all about making them more playable, because what would happen is, like, if you got dealt a hand like this, and there was a king in there, you would actually have to turn the card around just so you could see what it was. And when somebody saw you turn that card in your hand, well, they knew you had a court card in your hands, because those are the ones that you really had to flip around in your hand. Not just the pips in the corners or the index in the corner, but also the two-way courts, really about enhancing playability. And that is the deck. Now, there's a couple of other versions of the deck that I don't have, haven't gotten a hold of. There's the green version of the deck and also the hollow version of the deck. But got a good chance to look at the red version here and give you just a look at what you can expect, especially with that gilded version. As far as handling of these are printed by the Taiwan Playing Card Company. They do a great job with stock and finish. I really love how well the cards handle. Kind of a nice snappy stock, still nice and thin on a crushed stock. They fan beautifully even with the gilded version, and with those micro thin edges you can really appreciate some of the design elements throughout. So great handling on the deck. That said, uses of the deck, I think this one, despite being kind of a retro deck, I think this would be a great deck for cardistry. Lots of motion, you know, if you're using these in like kind of packet cuts or spins, that motion that you get on the back design really shows up beautifully. Nothing too distracting on the face of the card. So I think this would be a great cardistry deck. Gameplay, by design, it's going to kind of be limited for some scopes and some types of games. But for me, cardistry and just as a fun collector's deck, a nod to decks of the past, I think that's really where one's going to stand. Now, I will close with a couple of comments and kind of wishes on the campaign. You know, I still think it's a little bit odd. If you look at the other two videos, just how diverse and different the decks are, I kind of think they could have broken into a few different campaigns. And admittedly, to get a hold of the gilded versions like these, you do have to look at much larger tiers. You can't just get the gilded version. You may have to get a set of the regular decks as well. So wish they'd gone with maybe a little bit simpler of a structure on the campaign. That said, all three decks in the campaign, not just this one, but also Rebirth and Vertical, I think are really unique decks, and I think everybody can find something in there that they like. Vertical, really about hardcore cardistry deck and innovative packaging. This one is what I think of as kind of the more conceptual deck. I love the concept of the old meets new that they put together in Reminisce. So that's it for this preview. Make sure to go check out the other two previews, find out about Rebirth and Vertical and what those two brought to the table. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.